Hi, and welcome to Untold Radio, the Untold Radio Network we're part of. My name's Jay Katz, and this is Down South Anomalies, episode 14. I'm joined every week by my astounding wife, Aspasia. And Aspasia, we're on stolen land. We're actually approaching rapidly Invasion Day.
We want to acknowledge that we are on stolen land of the Gadigal people of the Eora Nation, and we want to pay respects to our leaders,
elders.
Oh God,
past, present, and future, and emerging.
Yes. Past, present, and emerging.
Yeah.
Okay,
we never get that completely right, but our heart is in the right place, and we are joined by two astounding gentlemen. And I am so proud, and we feel so privileged to have them with us. It is Gary Lynn and Buckingham from Australian Yowie Research. These gentlemen in 2021 captured a thermal image that should have changed the course of history.
The world.
Yeah. And you know what? The world is so ignorant, it's yet to recognize the power of the astounding research of both these men. So thank you for joining us on Down South Anomalies. How are you both?
Very well, thank you.
Very well. Very well. How about yourselves?
We are great. We're so excited to have you both with us, and thank you for your time. And if you do hear screaming in the background, we have no one tied up on the floor. It is just our cat, who is 18 years of age and is suffering a little bit of dementia like both of us are.
Yeah, but he does know to start carrying on as soon as the podcast starts.
Yeah.
So I don't know what's going on there. Yeah.
So maybe what I'll do is I'll just start with Buck and then go to Gary and ask you both how you...
Can I just ask Buck very quickly? Your parents named you Buckingham. Is that correct?
My parents named me another name. And
okay.
Gave me another.
Okay, so
Buckingham you've given me much better.
Okay, got it.
Because I was going to say,
what were they thinking?
Well,
I mean, it's a great name.
I was brought up in Africa, and I was initiated into a tribe with the gore and entrails of a buck. So there you go.
Okay, there you go.
That is fascinating.
All right, now that makes sense. Yeah. That makes a lot more sense.
So what I'm going to ask you both to tell us, if you can encapsulate what brought you to be part of Dean Harrelson's Australian Yowie Research, and have you both had an incident prior to becoming part of this astounding research team?
Yeah, I'll try and make it quick because Dean hates my long form story. Yes, when I was 15, I had an experience that I couldn't explain. But I was in a car with 5 people. We did a U-turn in the middle of the road, and as the lights went across the dam of North Pine Dam, this termite mound just grew legs and stood up and walked behind the car. We'd stopped because I'd said, "What's that?" And then a stench pervaded the entire car, and the 3 occupants in the back seat were just screaming. That included me going, "Drive, drive, drive, drive." And prior to that, I'd had an experience of stalking where I'd run along that very same stretch of road, perhaps 18 months, and then I heard heavy footsteps behind me to the lee side of a bank and at Falcon Cove, and I just ran all the way home and never went out again.
You know, growing up in Africa, did that make a difference to the way that you perceived the notion of like this other parallel hominid? Had you heard stories prior to that? Were you open to that?
I'm open to everything. I was given the starving kids in Africa with examples. And so when I came here, the thing I missed about Africa the most was the bush, because I was really out in the bush, and Australian bush is very, very familiar, very, very similar. The sky's got the same type of hue. And so I can't get enough of bushing. So it was camping, fishing, and bushwalking when I was young in Australia. And it's led me to great places and to meet fantastic people, including yours truly just down there, big man Lynn.
Yeah, well, it's about time, Gary. You tell us about what brought you to this extraordinary research.
Well, I've always been interested in the subject. That's nothing different. I mean, had a lot of paranormal experiences when I was younger. Always believed in Bigfoot as such, but as many people do, we believe it's an American thing, not an Australian thing, or a Asian or Kiwi or whatever other country. So I've always been interested in it, and it came to the point where we start to hear about the Yowie, trying to decide, is it real or not? Is it stories or? And it really kicked off one night when a mate and I decided to go out to Mount Lindsay, which is on the border of Queensland, New South Wales, southwest of the Gold Coast. We thought we'd go out there because on the road out there, it's actually painted Yowie crossing on the road.
Right.
So we had no idea what we're doing. We just thought we'll just go for a drive out there one night and see what happened. We went out once or twice, not too much, a few strange noises here and there, until one night where my mate said that he can. Well, we're basically standing beside the car at 1 o'clock in the morning. He said he can hear some kind of strange noise further down the road, so we thought we'll jump in the cars and head down that way and see what we can find. And as soon as we got out of the car down there, we got screamed at by something with extremely large lungs from about 10 feet away behind a wall lantana. And then minutes after that, we heard some other strange vocalizations coming from the north and the northwest. And every 15, 20 minutes, those vocalizations get closer and closer, to the point where I think we were actually surrounded by three of them. So we sort of had a bit of a moment, freaked out and got out of there. And it basically became the point where every time we go out to Mount Lindsay, we'd start to have interactions as such. When I say interactions, I just mean like grunts, heavy walking, sticks being thrown, stones being thrown, not at us, just around us. And yeah, it grew from there. And then one day I was on my road bike coming home from Mount Lindsay, and I saw this car as I was coming up the mountain, because I live in the Gold Coast hinterland. As I was coming up the mountain on the way home, I saw this car flash past with Yowie number plates. So I chucked a quick U-turn and cranked back down the hill and chased this guy at the speed limit. And come up behind Dean, revving the bike and waving my arms, and he got out of the car. I'm not sure what he expected to go on. Like, did he cut this guy on the bike off and he's about to get into a fight or something like that? I'm not too sure. And then he got out of the car. I introduced myself, told him the story about Mount Lindsay and getting between three of them and other kind of things like that. And it kicked off from there. Basically, he invited me out on a couple of expeditions, which is where I met the man, the myth, the legend, Buckingham. And it's been a beautiful, amazing, eye-opening, gorgeous experience ever since.
Absolutely.
That is astounding to hear. Can you tell us a little bit about when you mentioned then you had paranormal experiences as a child? Is that again your cultural template? Was that something that was open to your ancestry? I mean, I'm looking, from a white Westerner perspective, we've lost a lot of that cultural template. Growing up in Africa would mean that there was a difference there, and growing up in the midst of such extraordinary nature. Is there something similar in your life there, Gary?
I think my whole family just has a slight open door to what I call the real world. That's certainly what I call it these days, the real world that we live in. My mother's had a lot of ghost experiences when she was growing up. Other family members, because I was actually born in the UK.
Right.
And a lot of family members have had experiences of some kind. And basically growing up, I used to see what I thought were shadow people. And it got to the point where it just became normal. Like I'd see it in my peripheral vision. And it was that normal. I didn't worry about it because it happened that often. And it wasn't until later years through Reiki, as well as just general contact, I guess you could say, that it came about that it's not shadow people, it's actually ET contact.
Right.
And then, all this stuff sort of links up into one, I feel. I think there's different crossovers from each to the other. And I think people like us, we are tapped open already, hence why we have these experiences and we're more open to these situations and we can confront these situations with a less skeptical mind and less fear.
Now, I think, the interesting thing there, and especially again, Buck, is that, we're fascinated by the director, Richard Stanley, who actually, his mother was an anthropologist, and he was left in the care of shamans between the age of, and witch doctors between 0 and 8 years of age. And when he finally integrated into a school, he was shocked by the reductionistic way that people thought. He couldn't understand why people didn't accept the notion of levitation. And I think it's just coming from that different cultural perspective where your mind is already open, that you actually experience these things a lot more. Or is it that Taoist principle that you're actually alive in the moment and you're much more aware of what's around you and what's in your peripheral vision? But I guess one of the things we should lead to that's brought us to this interview is this astounding piece of footage that you guys have got on thermal imagery of what looks like a parallel hominid around 9 foot tall. Correct me if I'm wrong there. Yeah, let's just pop that image up.
Mm-hmm.
And I think this is a height comparison you've done. Is that correct?
That's correct. When I got the footage, I asked for the thermal images of everyone who was there. So on the very far right, you can see me looking through a camera, and that image is actually a reverse image, and that image is the one that Gary took of me as I was filming them. So he was on my right-hand side as I was looking into the bush at them. I had no size reference. There was no way I could judge the height until daylight, much later. In fact, it was Gary and Dean who went and found the most logical site, because it was pitch black. It was about 5% moon. I was out there and I was struggling to, believe it or not, find my subject of interest, which was behind a stump. And so I zoomed in, and all along this time I'd been radioing back to the guys, Gary, Dean and Shannon. Have been saying, I've got a heat signature. So at the beginning of the night, the beginning of this very long clip, my perception was that it looked like some big head looking around a tree, but it was like a brow and a mouth, but it wasn't clear. And it was the first heat signature I had of the night. And I said I would come and show the guys, and it looked like two hands, like on either side of a big tree, and then a head way up there. And then one by one, the hands went, or the heat signatures went. Now, that is my interpretation. I don't have, 100% clinical, clear-cut footage to show. I can show people that. But what happened from then was I'm radioing Gary and Dean and telling them of my progress. And I walk a bit further, closer to camp, not much, maybe 10 or 12 metres. And I look into the bush, and I keep wanting to, we're there for a reason. And I should be honest, the first person that got really good images was Dean. A really interesting image with an aging fleur down at Bellbird Grove. And then the next man of the moment was yours truly, Gary, who had on the same ridgeline further around, got two heat signatures. They were further off, and though it was hard for Gary to get the clarity because they're so distant, and he had it zoomed in, so he's trying to hold the camera, but he got two images of these big creatures coming down.
So we're actually trying to search for that footage at the moment. Remember, you popped it into the present area, but it could have disappeared on us.
So Gary's already done it. Dean had furnished the AYR in 2010 with a thermal camera, and he just let the people in New South Wales use it ad nauseum while he went and did business and worked. And then, so that was a fleur. And then as it came up to this night where Gary, Dean, myself, and young Jacob were up at Bellbird Grove, researching an eyewitness site, a very, very compelling eyewitness site. Dean had the misfortune of having the old Fleur. Gary and I were mucking about taking beautiful shots that just should accompany a meditation video or something.
Right.
Of water. And so we got a call over the radio going, Dean, Gary, where's that unit? And so Gary head off. But what Dean got, regrettably, unluckily, was this pair of giant eyes peering out from behind a tree. So Dean, as he normally does, reached deep into his pocket and bought a lot more units. And I heard someone describe him recently, and I totally agree, and that is unstinting generosity. He's very generous.
Right.
Anyway, so he'd got all these new units. He let Gary use it. He let me in it. But on this particular night, I was being introduced by Gary to this new unit. So I wasn't as familiar with it as Gary was, and I had a concept of how to use it because I've used a Fleur. So Gary had got these images, and it's game on. We'd done the reason he'd got these images is because we'd hauled our sorry backsides down to this dam and driven, there's your captive.
Yes.
Dragged ourselves across this dam for, a good, hour paddle, stayed there for hours and hours, had some type of interaction going on there. But when we got back in the wee hours of the morning...
sorry, Buck, don't play that down, mate. Like that night, that's you did see that heavy eye shine.
Yeah, we did have heavy eye shine, and we found a footprint.
Heavy eye shine had something. We had footprints. You heard and almost saw something moving off into the bush when you went to investigate. So yeah, don't play that down, mate.
Yeah.
You know what? Can we get that footage up? Can we just lower that screen and drop that footage?
No,
I'm sure we can.
No, we can't.
Let me just try that. Will it stop performing?
Yeah,
Will it?
Yeah.
That is such a pity. It's not in there.
But it is up on. No, it's not there.
Oh,
I don't know where it's gone.
We need to get that footage up.
But look, people can go on to Yowie.
It is up on your site, yowiehunters.com.
Yeah.
Can you maybe get that footage up, guys? Have you got that on you? That thermal footage at all? It's such a problem that's disappeared off our thing there. Just the moving.
Do you not have
footage.
it physically? Like, is it physically disappeared from you?
I think if we drop this down a bit, we might lose you.
Yeah, I don't want to do that. Don't want to do that.
Oh, I'd take it down and try it.
Would you really?
And grab it. Yeah, I'd try and grab it. Otherwise, we might have to start again. Let's just because this footage is vital that people actually see this. And sorry about our craziness here. We'll just see if the video file's there. Do you just want to check if that video file's there? Because we did load it this morning.
Okay.
Okay, sorry about this.
Where is it?
We're all on the screen.
It just downloads.
Yeah, let's go to
Was that it?
Yeah, that's it. That's it. Open it up.
Okay.
Okay. We're all on the screen there, weren't we?
Yeah. Aspasia, I believe in you.
Yeah.
We'll see what happens. All right, let's see if I can get it
up. Is that it there?
That's it. That should be.
Yeah. Just add to the stream. Let's see. There it is. Oh, you've done it. Look at that.
Okay.
Just walk us through this.
Okay. So what's happened is I've been following this heat image along the trail, trying to recreate what was going on earlier. And I zoom in and I find this stump, and it's a really peculiar heat signature behind the stump. So I radio the guys, got another heat signature. I asked Gary if he can cover my 6, and I'm going to try and zoom in.
Yeah.
So as I zoom in, like this is the end bit of a 1:19 clip,
pop up there,
and it's horrible. Like all that's happening is it's shaky, and I thought, oh God, I've got to really be still. And I keep looking left and right, and then lo and behold, these massive heat signature just comes out of the bush, and I've just got this little window between all these branches, and I say to Gary and everyone else, oh my God, they're here. It's human shaped. There are 2 there. So one steps, throws something down, picks something up, and then goes another area, and then another. Then it returns again and picks it up. Now, this is 6 seconds of footage. Why hasn't it set the world on fire? Because it is what it is. It's a thermal image, but it's proof of concept. You know, Dean's hard, won money and time, furnished us with the opportunity that if they were there, this would happen. And that wasn't the end of the night. I radioed Gary and said, I've got something. I'm coming back now. I lied for about 20 minutes saying, I'm coming back. But after that, I came back and Gary linked it via Wi-Fi to the phone. And then suddenly they knew I wasn't looking at a possum or saw a kangaroo. It was, and Shannon, oh my God, Shannon's, that's clear as day. I love it.
Well, it is clear as day. When I look at it, it's clear as day, and you're able to do the measurements and determine the height there. And it looks like the other one, is it sort of around a tree? Does it look like?
Yeah, there's a massive tree and a big stand of either Sawyer grass or some type of long cane, and they stepped out behind it. They've used it as cover, obviously, and when we're looking at the image, they're looking in the direction of camp, which would be another 50, 60 meters around a corner. But from where they are, they'll be very situationally aware that we were there. They knew we're there. Dean was playing Yo-Yo Mars, Barks and Schiller Suite number 13. So we had music going. There was some cooking going back at camp. And I was lights off and away from camp. So I have an idea they may have known I was there. I don't fully understand. But when I said to Gary, I said, oh, my God, they're here. Gary said, shall I come up? And at that stage, I'm looking through the viewfinder, and it's tiny. And I think I'm going to miss everything. So I want to zoom out. And all I do is I forget what Gary's told me, and I zoom through these filters, and you get more information when you break it down later, but it's frustrating. So I stop recording, and he says I'm coming up, and before I can hit record again, their heads turn to where Gary is, and they just disappear. They just move away. Gary came up, and they knew he was coming up, and they left.
Wow.
And it was ghostly quiet. It was just so quiet, and we struggle to explain that. We've done tests out there when you walk in the bush. The canopy and trees, Gary and I have done tests, and you go, they break up a lot of sound, and you can disguise your sound, but they're masters out there. They're masters. So then Gary and I were shoulder to shoulder most of the night, as with everyone, just trying to get some more footage. And I should let Gary talk a bit more, because he was doing a whole heap of stuff back at camp.
I'd be fascinated to hear that. Can I just digress to that point, though? The music that Dean was playing, was he playing that for you in the camp, or was that just part of your procedure?
Really annoying music.
but I've heard the music actually, part of our Indigenous culture has spoken about them appearing at nights when they were doing ceremonial dancing and rituals. The music was playing, that they would feel their presence behind them, and when they looked into the tree line, they were there sort of listening and enjoying that music. And last week we had on Christopher Noel, who's come up with the autistic savant hypothesis from Impossible Visits, and he calls them a very percussive species. He gets a lot of wood knocks where he is in Vermont, but he said there's something there, there's a musicality. So was this an intentful thing that was annoying, or was this just something that Dean was doing for the camp?
No, it's with intent. Nothing's by accident. You need an attractant. We have a base camp. We've talked about this long and hard, Gary. Like we've said, let's play the campers. We know what camping's like. They know what camping's like. They've seen thousands and thousands of campers. They would see them all the time, the ones that are close to us. But what they're not ready for is us moving away without torches, without big interfering lights, and also putting ourselves in their territory, roaming around away from the safety of a fire or the safety of white light. So they've come up to this area, and I have to give all credit where credit's due. This was no accident. We were there because of the hard slog that Dean and Gary had put in the hard yards. Gary had been talking about sticks in the ground. I went, what is he? The three little pigs? I don't know. And so the sticks in the ground, Gary's keen eye, he is an incredible tracker and an incredible marksman when it comes to detail and finding stuff. He's very, very good, and he's just absolutely invaluable on our team. So he'd been noticing the optics of stickland. This is why we've given it this name, is in this small area of this tract. A lot of sticks and markers were being placed, the usual X markers and sticks in the ground. I hadn't noticed them.
Even really subtle
that kind of
structures
things?
like this,
Yeah.
that most of us would not even notice for 1 second, but you can see there's some intent and purpose, and they've been laid out in a certain structure. Maybe let's get to Gary's perspective on that night, and then we'll
Take
go
it
to
away,
the stick
Gary,
structures.
because that picture that you just showed up,
Gary,
that was fantastic.
Right.
Yeah, no, it was as Buck mentioned, there was a lot of back work into the night of Buck's amazing thermal capture. As he said, like it started off with the kayaking across the dam at late at night, then kayaking back across the dam at 4 o'clock in the morning, and again that involved eye shine and footprints and movement, 2 UFOs flying over the top. And then
hold on a moment. What did you say then?
UFOs on the
flying
top.
over the top. So lights. What sort of UFOs?
Yeah,
like a min light?
So we'll call them light objects.
Mm-hmm.
So for a while there, I had 2 light objects which would kind of follow me around. They'd be up there in the stars, but every time I go outside or I'd look up, there they are, following each other. Could be directly above, could be on the horizon. So yeah, I mean, again, like this just comes into like a normal perspective for us, for me personally and as a team. But yeah, so we basically kayaked back across the dam, taking the kayaks back up, loading the kayaks back into the dam. Back into the van. I loaded my kayak up and heard some movement across the road. So where this particular road is, it's in the deep forest in Springbrook National Park. So I crossed the road up on this embankment, heard some movement. And I went down and told Dean. Dean took his kayak up, and when Dean got up there, he heard like a grumble, grunt, growl kind of noise. So that's what kicked it off, with more investigation of that particular area. And we came back to that exact spot a few times, and not exactly the ridge line just yet, because we sort of focused a little bit at the bottom. Whereas even with one night, myself, Shannon, and Dean were at this location down below. And Dean was up the track a little bit, and by himself, sitting in the dark. We're probably talking 11:30 at night. And Dean comes out of the radio and says, "I've got movement down below me in the valley." He can hear something bipedal moving through the bush, pushing branches out of the way, just those typical sounds. So I radioed through to Dean, "Would you like me to give you backup?" Hence, like giving Buck backup that particular night. Dean said, "No, I'm fine. Actually, I was just up here quietly by myself." So then myself and Shannon proceeded to stay at a little base camp. Now, in a little base camp, we had tall gums around us, but directly above us, it was open tree canopy, so we could see the stars in the open sky directly above us.
Right.
And about 10 minutes after Dean hears something moving through the bush, Shannon and I hear what I can only describe as a mechanical buzz cross with when someone dives a stunt kite. When you see those stunt kites on the beach, and they dive, and they flutter through the wings of the stunt kite. Cross that with a mechanical buzz. Shannon and I look up straight away, and we see a big blacked out V slowly flying directly over the top of us with no lights, nothing, just a big black V silhouette. And it kept going in the southeast direction. And then, I mean, the next time we're out there, it was myself, Jacob, young Jacob, Dean, and another guy who jumped on the journey for the night. And that particular night, myself and Jacob were up by the roadside. I heard this heavy movement across the road from the same location as we heard that movement and that grunting noise of the night of the kayaks. So I pull the thermal camera up, and I see this huge heat signature coming down from the ridgeline. And as that heat signature got closer, it then split off into two. And this is when Dean just got this new thermal camera. So I was still myself like Buck in that night. I was still myself working out the buttons and that kind of thing, like as in to know them, like the back of your hand as such.
Yes.
And as this heat signature split off into two, I then realised what I was looking at. Two of these beings. One went off to the left, one went off to the right. The one went off to the left and sat in amongst the ferns. The one went off to the right, appearing to pull bulbs from the ground, I assume for a food source. So this particular viewing experience went on for about 14 minutes. And after that particular night, we thought, right, we need to investigate this particular ridgeline. So myself, Dean, at the time, young Jacob, who's no longer part of the team, we decided we need to get up this hill. And so myself and Dean went back during the daytime just to have a quick scout, as you do, just so we get an idea of what's going on. As you do, you get up there. Let's go up to that bush. Let's go up to that tree. Next, you know, you're a K and a half along this ridgeline with no water, and you realise you've got to go all the way bloody back. So that particular situation is where this ridgeline at the start got its name Hamstring Hill, because as we're going back down to the cars, Dean was about 15, 20 minutes ahead of me, and he stepped over a fallen tree, and when doing so, he pulled his hamstring.
Right.
And me being the generous, kind-hearted, loving person, I said, wait, don't move. I grabbed my phone out and I took a photo of him in pain and agony, holding his hamstring laying in the grass. And then I went and helped him.
It's hilarious.
That's how that joint got coined Hamstring Hill. And then we come back another day with Jacob, and this is where we actually climb this ridgeline all the way to the top. And on the way, we're finding foot impressions. We even found knuckle impressions in the dirt.
Wow.
We just kept going up until we got to the top. And well, which way do we go, left or right? We decided to go left because it looked better than going right. And this is where Buck was talking about the sticks in the ground. These huge sticks jammed in the ground. Like some sticks are 2 inches thick and 3 meters tall. Other sticks are 0.5 meter tall and like twigs. Now, I will say first and foremost that Mother Nature does do some tricky things.
Mm-hmm.
Of course.
However, a lot of these sticks have no tree canopy above, so therefore they cannot fall from a tree above. And we'd find these sticks in certain locations. We'd find these sticks, like 5 of them, spaced a meter apart, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, in a weird kind of arrangement. And it was actually finding these sticks in the ground is what led us on to pay more attention to our surroundings and to the ground. Hence why we started to come across these symbols or glyphs that we find made of sticks in the ground. And as you'll notice with a lot of these sticks, a lot of these symbols are one stick, and they've snapped them in multiple points to create the triangle or to create the other type of symbol. They break the meat of the stick, but they never break the bark. The stick is always intact in some way. So again, so finding the sticks is what led us on to pay attention to the ground a lot more. We kept going along this track on this particular day, just taking it all in and absorbing the situation, absorbing the area and the sights and the smells and the sounds. And then things started to heat up a bit more, where we're walking down the track and I saw a rock come from off the left-hand side of the track horizontally and land up on the track about 20 meters in front of us. I sprinted down there, looked behind this tree, trying to see down the embankment. There's nothing there, unfortunately. But I'm saying that they are, as Buck said, they are masters of their environment. So it could have been there right in plain sight, but the eyes at that point in time weren't as trained as what they are now.
Yes.
And so that sparked things off. Like we have to keep going. So we found more signs and more things of interest. And then we basically come back to try and find a better access point, because trying to carry gear like cameras and food and overnight attire, our dressing gowns and that kind of stuff.
Pipes.
You had dressing gowns out there. That's amazing. I love that.
Teddy bears and stuff. We had to find a point of better access.
Right.
I can't remember who it was. It might have been Dean or it might have been Buck. Actually, I can't quite remember. But one of them found a better point of access from a higher top location. And yeah, it kicked off from there. And this particular night, I think it was about 9:30 on this particular night. As Buck said, we got the music, the food, and that kind of stuff. We got the camp. And as a protocol, when we're in camp, we use white light, as an attractant to that particular area. Once we leave camp, it is a strict rule, unless it's necessary, a strict rule that you either no light or red light from your headlamp. And again, The only time you use white light away from camp is if it's necessary, to investigate something potentially dangerous, or to find your way out, or to find someone, if it's necessary.
And do you do much speaking, Gary? Are you on tippy toes? Is it all hush hush at that moment that you decide to go to red light or nothing?
Yeah, I mean, we tend to once we leave camp, we tend to only speak when it's needed, and if we do speak, we try to use a low tone, so that way low tones don't carry through the bush as much as higher tones. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's about 9:30 at night, and Buck's up the track, and we're sort of going back and forth either side of camp. And Buck started to have a bit of interest up on the western end of camp. So, we sort of kept tabs on him and keep an eye on him. So we go check on him, because he's up there by himself. Because if something's going on, like he said, when I said, would you like backup, and I left camp, straight away they knew that I was coming up. So we tend to have like a sixth sense about this, just like a knowing that if something's going on, we let the situation rest and see what eventuates. Don't add more turmoil to it, which could diffuse the situation. Look at me using big words.
No, and that's brilliant. That's very insightful, and that's very in tune with the nature and the experience you're going through. Keep rolling.
Good stuff. Yeah, so it's about 9:30 at night, and Buck's starting to get activity. So again, we keep an eye on him, come out of camp with the thermal cameras, have a pan around with the thermal cameras so we can see where he is, again, to keep an eye on him. We're talking about 100 meters out of base camp at the most, so he wasn't that far out of base camp. Again, in this particular location, it is heavy, dense forest / rainforest. Right. So even 20 meters out of base camp is still quite heavy. And there's certain points where I would then, I think it was actually after Buck witnessed a heat signature looking around that tree stump, I actually went halfway between camp and between Buck, and I sat on a chair so I could see camp to my left, I could see Buck to my right. So I had his back, but I wasn't close enough to damage anything that was going on. But I had his back, and I could see him in plain view with the thermal camera. And that actually leads back to another interesting story about these beings. And yeah, it's progressed on, and I'm at back at camp, Buck's up there by himself, and things are starting to kick off. And we basically just kept Buck in our sights, to for his safety as well. And as Buck stated before, on that superimposed thermal image, where you can see him looking through the camera. So as he said, that's a thermal picture I took of Buck while he was watching these beings in the forest in front of him.
Well, that's extraordinary.
That's that one.
Correct. Yeah. So in a way, that's a live photo of him capturing a live thermal image. So that's, that was a perfectly situational event, that one. And yeah, as Buck said, things are going on. He's captured them. He come back to camp. Everyone's buzzing because, Buck said he's got something, but we don't know what it is. We had our hopes up, and then I Wi-Fi'd to my phone from the camera, and as people see on our YouTube video, we're huddled around me holding the phone. And when they both stepped out, we're just, we're losing, we're excited, we're over the moon. We must have watched it on repeat probably 2,462 times.
Easy.
And and then we're alive and buzzing, and as Buck said, the situation hadn't ended. So a couple of hours later, Dean and Shannon jumped into the hammocks to rest their sleepy little heads. And myself and Buck, we actually stayed by the campfire, sitting side by side on the camp chairs, because we were just buzzing. We were over the moon about this. And we were watching it, and we were also talking about the situation. But there's no music playing, it's just Buck and I talking. But in the distance from camp, in the darkness, you could hear the bipedal walking around camp. You could hear them breaking branches back here. You could hear walking over here and breaking branches over there. So they stayed around us until whatever time it was that they planted those stick symbols in the ground down the track, sometime between 2:30 a.m. and 5:30 a.m.
Yeah, 2:30.
What people will see.
2:30 a.m. By then, Gary and I were plumped up it out. We'd both had busy days. Everyone's had a busy day. We've hauled ass. We've got everything up there.
No, we weren't. We were like, we should probably get some rest.
You probably get some rest, some shut-eye, some beauty sleep. Anyway, so we had been going up and down this track multiple times. Now, this is important for the next part of the story, which Garrett will continue, is that we had been up and down that area. I had actually got some footage of Gary coming up and down the track, so I can see his heat signature, can see everything on that track. I can see kangaroos and, wallabies for much later in the evening. And the track was clear. And when we hit the hay at 2:30, we all went to sleep in our business hammocks that AYR kindly provided.
Very, very peacefully, by the way. We just had this situation happen, and we got into these hammocks as some American podcast friends of ours had called us Australian sausage rolls. But yeah, like we quite comfortably jumped on these hammocks and quite peacefully went to sleep.
So yeah, it brings us to the morning, and we're still buzzing, and we get up, and it is late, and we decamp. And as we carry all the gear up to where we're exiting, past the area where I filmed, Gary, take it away.
Well, so yeah, we heading out, as Buck said, we're heading back to the cars to go home, and we come across these sticks jammed in the ground. One was just a normal stick jammed in the ground. One looked like a backwards number 4. There was an X marker beside that big.
Should I play the overlay of the images that you sent me? Is this part of those stick structures?
No, not really.
There is.
Okay.
That's
have
more,
one
that's
of
more
the
stuff
X.
that we. But shush, I'm talking.
Sorry.
Okay. I love the chemistry between you two. I can see there's a great affection. And one of the most important things that I think is profound between both of you is that great affection, but that attention to detail and that beautiful humor.
Oh, it's just, Buck's an amazing person. Like, Buck brings an amazing, friendly, beautiful energy to our adventures.
And I can see that, and I can see that in you, Gary. And I think that's what makes you guys such a remarkable research unit. But as Buck said, carry on.
So we found these sticks in the ground, and they were not there the night before, because we're after Buck got these images, he did go for a quick walk back up there just to have a check around, and the track actually drops off, and he actually went down where it drops off. He was down there for a little bit, and I radioed, "Would you like a chair?" So you're not standing up. So I actually brought him a chair, and he on thermal, he watched me walk straight through this area carrying a fold-out chair. Those sticks were not there, because if they were, I would have walked straight into them. I would have knocked them over down the middle of the track. So yeah, we had these thermal images about these sticks in the ground. And we were all sleepy and that kind of thing at 5:30 in the morning. But once we found these sticks on the ground, everyone was full of beans and up and going, and phones are going, taking photos and videos. And like it's then kicked off consistent activity at this particular location. Even including like I was saying earlier about sitting between Buck and camp on this particular night, so I've got his back and whatnot. Once Dean and I went back and we found their foot impressions. So the foot impressions were about I think they've been 18, 19-inch foot impression. They weren't castable because of the terrain, but you could quite easily see the foot impressions where they were standing. And I actually tracked.
That is a gigantic impression. What would you estimate the height of something like that is?
About the 9.5, 10 foot tall.
9.5 foot thing that they found.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
That they filmed.
Okay. I'll give you an idea. This one, that's a 14-inch.
Right.
Yeah.
So these beings are leaving 18, 19-inch impressions. And that's going to fall over on me, so I'll just place it down.
What can I just ask you quickly?
Yes.
What actually attracted you to that area in the beginning? Why did you go to that area? Was there any particular reason, or you just went, this is as good an area as any?
The optics, everything was leading up there, all the signs, the knuckle impressions, the foot impressions.
Right. What was
the sticks?
But how did you find those impressions in the beginning?
It's an intuitive feeling. So I follow a lot of intuition when we go out. And I think that's what's given me the nickname the Finderer.
Right.
Because I am following my intuition, following my energy, following energy that draws me that particular direction. Which is something as a team is what we do. We'll go to an area, we'll feel the energy of the area. It either feels right or it doesn't. And with this particular location, it felt right. We just felt like we were in the right place for some kind of interaction. And it's basically things like that determine a lot of our decisions.
Yeah, I use a lot of logic. Yeah, I use a lot of logic.
For sure.
And I follow Gary and his intuition.
Because it wasn't that somebody had a sighting out there and told you guys, and you went, okay, let's go.
There's plenty of sightings all along Springbrook. But this place was special. Like it was with the sticks and the footprints and the knuckle impressions. You are only hours, days, moments away from the intersect that we're always trying to recreate, where we're here and they're coming into our world, or we have some control because we choose to be out there. They're out there right now, but we're not. And so for every hour that we go out, it's a precious hour. And the signs and observations that Gary, Dean and Jacob and other people had made suggest that this was a good, wise choice to be in. Where we were in this particular area, it's the top of a ridge, is perhaps maybe 200-300 meters before it starts to go up and down again. So there was a comfortability. It was also the high ground. These creatures go up and down mountains and valleys like it's nothing. But for us, we'd hauled Dean's kitchen and his lounge and everything else up on this little cart. And so we were a bit spent, and it was a good place to be, but it was the right place to be. And we wouldn't have been there if these guys didn't do the hard work and go, this looks like it, we should spend a night here.
But then your approach to it, and I'm sorry to interrupt you there, Gary, but your approach to it is the intent that you carry out there. So, is there an awareness in both of you and Dean and the team that they're aware of your intent?
Yeah, so basically when we go out there, so as you see, like I've got with this hand, so I'm looking backwards on the camera. Hang on. This way. You see a Stargate just there?
Yes.
The amethyst Stargate. So yeah, I love crystals. That's come about for a certain reason too. They're not just pretty rocks like a lot of people think they are. I was one of those people, but not anymore. So yeah, when we go out, we interact with crystals. We go out, myself and Shannon we go and meditate in certain areas. We take our shoes off. We ground ourselves in these areas, and put out that positive intent for positive contact. We don't go out there with arrogance. Even as a team, like even though it's only myself and Shannon that go off and meditate, you've got people like Buck who has a beautiful soul and intention.
Yes.
That energy carries through the bush and carries through the environment. So even though Buck doesn't meditate, they still feel his intent, because a calm, loving intent. And I think because as a team, as a collective with the team, I honestly believe that's why we have so much going on. We find so much. We get attracted to certain areas because of energy and intent. And that's something that we've done. And again, like following intuition as well. Even that particular night that's Dean on the old FLIR camera at Bellbird Grove in Brisbane, watched this being walk down the ridgeline and then stand behind a tree and poke its head out multiple times looking at him, while Buck and I were having a tea party on the other side of the ridge. The reason that we're on that particular ridge is because I was following my intuition, and my intuition led me to find footprints, which led me to follow that direction, which in the end I said to Dean, we need to go up this ridge line. And then next thing you know, Dean's unfortunately again using the old FLIR camera, which only takes still photos, which are very blurry, and it doesn't record video anymore. But he still had an amazing sighting and managed to capture this being's eye shine poking around a tree.
And the amazing sighting too, Gary, is on the back of a incredible eyewitness daytime sighting during lockdown.
Yes.
An aggressive encounter, a challenging encounter. So it wasn't pure happenstance, but Gary's intuition. I just follow it. I don't have to understand it. I trust it. I trust Gary. I also, in terms of...
what's astounding there, and I'm interrupting you, Buck, but what's astounding there is, most people who haven't done much research into this would think, well, maybe this is a flaky idea. But all of us know with age that if we trust in our intuition, it will serve us well. And most Indigenous cultures fall steadfast on their intuition, but also academics like Rupert Sheldrake talk about this. They talk about panpsyism, like nature has its own consciousness that interacts with us. And if we go out there, and we know from fungi that can grow for miles and be like one huge living organism, is aware when a predator comes into its midst, and makes the rest of that living species in that forest aware that danger could prevail. So I don't think you're actually in any area that's flaky. It might be hard for us in a reductionistic, semantic, here I go with the language, Gary, the bullshit, but, it might be hard for us to actually put that into words and explain it. But there is good science behind it. There is academic acknowledgement, and there is an incredible history of Indigenous culture that has lived in harmony with these areas that we seem to have lost in this industrialized technological world we live in.
That's
and
exactly
I'll probably
right.
Thank you.
I've thrown you right off your point there, Buck, haven't I? And excuse me for that digression.
He's fine. He'll be right. He'll be right.
Well, with intent, like when I go out, I intend to look. That's purely my intent, is to observe. But I also very conscious. I don't have a knife. I don't have any weapon on me. I've often wondered if I go out with I've never gone out with a weapon. The most I've ever carried is pliers or something. But I've gone out with the idea that I'm no threat. And I wouldn't be anyway, even if I did have enough. But I'm making sure I don't have anything on me that would be threatening. That doesn't mean that I'd willingly be eaten. Yes, I would. I'd love to be eaten. But we all have our own intents, and, guys, I don't know why I was looking up that side. I'm not nearly as in tune as Gary, but I could have just as well been focused on the other side of the ridge because I didn't hear them.
And I think that's an example of your intuition. You know,
and I didn't see them. The camera saw them. Let's be honest. The camera and the technology saw them. I was there.
Yes, but you had the camera pointed in the right direction.
Yeah, but do not put
your
yourself
intention
down.
made you look that way.
Yeah. And it's an extraordinary thing that people with different approaches can be in harmony with each other and accept that difference and be united as this profound research team. You know, when I look at what's happening in America, and I'm not there, but it's easy to generalize, there is so much competition. There is so much arrogance. There is so much negativity thrown at this subject matter. Everyone believes they're on the cusp of discovering the entire meaning to humanity, and they are the ones that are going to do it. The point of fact that we are nothing unless we're united, and it is our love and acceptance of the difference in each other that will bring these extraordinary, profound moments to the forefront. And I think what I'm witnessing in the chemistry between both of you tonight, Dean, and the profound, the astounding Sarah, is just an incredible group of people that have come together, accepted each other's difference, and are working in harmony to prove that there is a much greater world around us than we've been told.
Well, when Gary first appeared on the scene, I got these amazing reports from Dean saying, I found this new guy. He's really interesting. He tracked me down. I thought he was going to kill me. But
with love.
With love. But he went down with me. I think he went to Ormo or something. He went to a couple of sites. He said he doesn't stop. He's so strong. He's really good. He's a good unit and he's dependable. And so it's high praise from Dean very early on to earn a respect because he's had a lot come at him and he's sometimes quite guarded because, you know, everybody wants he still is, wants to tell him how to do it. And what we've all realised is that we've had a lot of experience, and I would never call myself an expert. Maybe Dean, and Gary certainly is the finder. He can find anything, and we'll tell you an amazing find he had. But so it's a good team, and I've never forgotten the night. And I was looking at this photo the other day, Gary. It was when Al.
Don't tell him that was Buck. That was
it was hilarious.
Private photo, Buck.
I know we need to know about that. Maybe that's for part two.
It was just all through the night. We'd had a rotten night. We had come across some people that were actually faking stuff, and we caught them out. At the end of a long night and disappointing occurrence, we were tired, got in a hammocks, and Al, who's a great member of our team, new member, but a great unit, he got into his hammock, and we just heard zip, thud, and he came crashing down, and Gary laughed for 10 solid minutes, and he popped cartilage working, so he was in agony, so he was crying and laughing, crying. That was one of the best moments I've had, just hearing the big man just ruin himself with laughing.
And you know what a better way to approach a problem like that than to laugh your way through the pain. And cartilage is extraordinary pain. Look, I don't want us to run out of time, so I want to go into these images that you sent us, and I'm sorry to interrupt you. I am just really emotionally touched by both of you, and it is a real privilege to spend some time with you. Let's have a look at these structures. You can maybe walk us through these images independently or separately or whatever.
Gary, you do it. You're the glyph man.
Okay, so that one is one that I've found twice. Still trying to work out what that means. It is similar to other ones. Like sometimes we find symbols, glyphs, whatever you want to call them, that kind of look like the outlines of a house, but slightly off. So, you know, I've tried to research, you know, many different ancient texts like Sumerian, Ogham, runestones, that kind of thing. I've found symbols that are close, but nothing close enough that I can align with what we find from these beings. Now, as you can see in that one there, Now that's one stick, but as you can see, they've broken it in multiple locations
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
to form this shape. Again, they break the meat of the stick, but they never break the bark of the stick. We've kind of come to realization that with these triangles, a lot of them are directional arrows,
Right.
pointing in, obviously certain areas. I think you come across triangles like this with no discernible direction at all. It's just a triangle placed on the ground. And a lot of time with these symbols as well, that one's probably the most intricate one that I've ever found.
That's fascinating.
Like with a lot of these symbols that we find as well, especially with the triangles, even if the triangle is made up of multiple sticks, what they actually do, this is something that people should keep an eye out for if they do find these triangles, is that when the sticks are laid, they're laid under, over, under, over, under, over. So each point,
They're weaved.
Like a weave.
almost, yeah, like basically at each intersect with these sticks, they're always under, over, under, over, under, over. The last one and this one here, where myself and Shannon found these particular symbols in a location here on the mountain I live on, Beachmont, where we were extremely close to having, I think, at least visible contact.
Right.
This particular location involved speaking to the area, touching the trees. It's the same symbol. Now, what you see there with the marbles. Now, I placed out marbles, 6 marbles. We then watched these marbles move around this location. Some of these marbles went uphill. Marbles can't roll uphill.
No.
And they're placed up in forks of trees, on top of rocks, that kind of thing. We came in one day. That's what they did. They placed that symbol with a marble, and on top of that rock, that stack of rocks, they did that.
Right.
Now you will see in another photo they actually placed this structure inside those rocks. Again, that's from the same location. That one is from a location at the back of Jimboomba in Queensland, where, again, like some of these symbols, some look like arrows, like they're pointing a specific direction. Others are just is it the all-seeing eye?
Right. Are you aware of the American researcher Snow White Bigfoot? Have you seen her YouTube channel?
Am.
Yeah,
I am,
and she does a lot of that gifting as well, and she will find things move around really subtly. She is quite astounding. She has that same emotional intuition you both seem to have.
Yeah, I have come across her research, but even stuff she finds, like I have spoken to many Americans trying to correlate the symbols that we find when we go out, and I'm yet to find an American researcher, including Snow White, who finds glyphs and symbols like we do.
Right, they're different. They're different. Isn't that interesting?
They are.
That there's a different aspect now.
They are.
Now, here's an interesting tree break. It's not really a break, is it? That
Well,
has to be done with some huge
Well,
force.
Correct.
got hands.
So exactly right. So the reason that I sent you guys this one is so people that are watching this, they could get an understanding of what 90% of tree breaks are meant to look like. So when these beings do a tree break, as they break it down, they twist with their hand, which, as you can see, gives that twist in the break. Because
that would take a lot of force.
Oh yeah,
exactly right. We found trees thicker than that, which have been twisted and broken as well. These tree breaks often point to areas of interest, be it a cave, water, food, anything like that. Sometimes you can follow these tree breaks through the forest for kilometres, as long as you can keep finding those tree breaks. But again, I sent you this particular picture just so people get an idea of what a natural tree break looks like. Because again, people need to remember that Mother Nature does do some tricky stuff. Even like the tree bends, where they will sometimes bend a tree over and wedge it underneath another tree.
Now, this is interesting. Explain this one. This is wild.
That's wild.
Basically it's two palm trees. So I'm not the species of palm tree escapes me, but the trunk only gets to maybe 2 inches thick at the most. They do get to like 3-4 meters tall. So what they've done in this particular location, which is the same location as that intricate structure with the rock in the center, So what they did, they actually taken these two palms and bowed them in toward each other. And then, as you can see, like a traditional tribal basket, they've woven all the roots of the leaves all together. So these trees are basically tied together in this big arch.
Mm.
Oh, God.
And like it's
entwined.
not tied. That's right. There's
Mm.
another one there.
Yeah.
It is not tied like a human tying a knot.
No.
As you see,
Wow.
like they're woven like a tribal basket.
Mm.
Yeah, it's very rustic, which is what I always find interesting when Gary brings these, is that we've seen people, attempt and actually do their own type of weaving or rock stacking and putting it on Instagram, and it's all curated. This is has a purpose and a meaning, but it's not for Instagram. It's for
yeah.
Also on private property as well.
Yeah. So this is, look at the height in that.
So these two palms were about 4 or 5 meters apart, and they've been bowed in, all the way to meet each other.
Wow.
Wow.
There's Shannon's.
That's not Mother Nature.
There you go.
Yeah.
No. So as you can see in that picture, that's the two palms pulled over and tied together.
That's extraordinary. That is really unique.
Yeah.
And we need to pay attention to the wilderness around us. Now, what are we looking at here? I was curious about these because the next shot has a hand pointing in that direction.
Yes, it's a little bit small on my screen. I might have accidentally pressed that one.
Okay, let me try this one. Does this tell us more?
Oh, yes. So basically, with this particular location is where we were following basically their signs. So that cast that I showed you before, that was cast in this particular area.
Oh, right, okay.
And so in that direction I'm pointing, there you go, the rock stacked in the tree there.
Right.
And you can see there's a tree. Oh, it's outside that picture, sorry.
Is the rock stack as ubiquitous as the tree breaks? Are rock stacks something you come across quite often?
Yes and no. I've had rock stacks down in New South Wales.
Yeah.
And depends on the location, because there are people who are doing rock stacks purely for Instagram or inspiration.
Oh, right, okay.
But it's,
yes, correct.
They're different.
Sorry.
They're different. So this is Gary's.
Yeah. So I'll just quickly jump in there. So that last picture with the selenite. So that one there. So the selenite has been used in a lot of CE5 meditation, which is human initiated contact with their friends above.
Yeah.
So we use that selenite spiral as a gift. The bike chain is excess chain from my bike, which you can actually contort and move into slightly different shapes. But because you can contort it into a triangle, and we found these triangles in this location, we gifted that. And the two rocks signify myself and Shannon.
Right.
And then when you go to that the next picture,
a
couple of days later, is what they left for us.
Wow. Okay, that's the bike chain in the middle there.
That's right. The selenite got taken. It was never returned. We also gifted a piece of clear quartz and smoky quartz. They returned the clear and smoky about 3-4 weeks later. But that selenite never returned. But again, that's in response to the selenite, the two rocks on the chain. That's what they left us.
So on exactly the same, in exactly the same spot or somewhere else nearby?
Same spot. So in that particular picture there, that big rock to the right, that's the gifting rock we use.
Right.
Wow.
Okay.
Wow. So that's
that
is extraordinary. And for people that say, I mean, you're in communication.
Yeah, that is.
There is some form of language and communication you're having. Yeah, that is remarkable. Now, these are ubiquitous, aren't they? You see the X's. They seem to be a worldwide phenomenon, but you seem to have some gifting in the middle of that X. Is that something you've done?
Okay, so, yes. So, I think, there might be the zoomed out one.
Yeah.
So what you can see there is a pink scrunchie that I took my daughter in there because, she's seen yowies twice up here.
Right.
How old is she? How old is she?
She's 5 now, but she saw them twice when she was 3.
Right.
So I took her into this area, and as a gift, she gave them her scrunchie.
Wow.
And the black thing in the center is the bike chain. So what they've actually done is opened up the bike chain, put it through the scrunchie, and closed it back up, and then sat it up in the middle of that X.
Children are much more aware of this, aren't they? They're in harmony with it. They don't show the fear.
They're not programmed.
No, they're not.
Not programmed. You know, so that's especially with my daughter. There you go. That's the big export. So with my daughter, I actually take her out. Like we go out. I get her to ground herself, either through putting her forehead on a tree, or we go out the backyard barefoot, and we say a little mantra, ground ourselves. She's well aware of yowies and UFOs and ETs and all that kind of stuff. Yeah. Again, because that's the world that we actually live in. So to close her off to that, I think, is a very terrible negative thing to do.
And you know what? It is just the most profound and beautiful thing for her imagination to be expansive, to be infinite, and and this just what is happening here?
Same location.
How incredible!
That was, again, like same.
Is that jammed in there? Is that jammed in there?
It is. This location has so much activity going on that Shannon and I would go in there once every couple of days or once a week or whatever, or depending on weather and that kind of thing. And those 2 big trees, what we do, we'd actually put our hands on the trees and speak to the area, and thank the area, put out that intent to the area. And going back to that earlier picture I'm pointing, that actually went down to where that intricate symbol was. And what that actually did was they actually, because you're obviously going to go through the bush to get down to this lower location, because this particular property is on the side of a hill. Yep, they did that as well. That's the scrunchie moving around the location.
Wow.
And they would get branches and vines and tie branches and vines together in a subtle way of asking us to stop going down to this lower location.
Right.
After the 3rd or 4th time we went, hang on, maybe the penny dropped. So we decided to leave that lower location alone, and we'll stay in the higher location where the scrunchies and that kind of thing. Once we did that, the interactions, the findings, everything skyrocketed.
Wow.
I guess as Buck said earlier, we show respect to the area. We're not being typical human race. That's us on one of our adventures, because you've got to go places to find things.
Sure.
That's in the depths of the valleys of Springbrook, where there's no tracks. We literally decide on a direction and we go that way.
The amazing thing is too, I was talking to Sarah about this. You guys have done this literally out of your own finance and your own back. You don't even have a pay wall.
Your kids have day jobs?
Yeah, well, you have to, don't you?
Yeah, for sure.
Maybe they've got a sugar mama that's funding. I don't know.
They have not. You know what? The point of fact is, and this is proof of their integrity, and the truth about that is that these guys are honorable. And the fact that they don't, I said it, you at least need a donation button. But, there's a documentary. You guys are stunning in the wilderness. You guys are all like high-class models in the wilderness. Look at this stuff. I'm serious.
Well, part of Dean's philosophy, and I respect it and understand it, that he doesn't, everything's for free. He pays for the websites and put a lot of time and effort, and he didn't want to put any ads on the YouTube things because he felt that detracted from the integrity of the open source information. That's that there's troves and troves and troves of stuff that you can go through, all these documented sightings, all these sound interviews, all these interviews that have been curated with illustrations, and then there's the incredible backlog of over 25 years worth of work that you can get for free.
Yeah. You know what's amazing there is that the National Archives here in Australia has seen the worth of it and now wants to posthumously take those sightings and that extraordinary work you've done. And if people are unaware out there, you need to go to yowiehunters.com. I have never seen an equivalent site, and I'm not being rude to our international researchers, but I've never seen a site of this level of integrity, of topographical maps, of incredible eyewitness accounts.
Details,
it is the details, the meticulousness of it is astounding. And I don't think it would harm your integrity at all if there was a donation button. But the most profound thing is there isn't. And so people should just wake up, smell the coffee, and realize that there is profound integrity in Australian Yowie research. It's just incredible. Now, I just wanted to show a structure. The wife and I believe that you can't really comment about this stuff unless you get out there and do the field research yourself. There are too many armchair theorists and critics out there that don't get into the wilderness. And we are so alien to the wilderness, it's ridiculous. The shoes I took out to find this structure, my wife was laughing herself sick behind me when the soles liberated.
He walked out of the soles. He'd had these hiking shoes for so long, for years, under the bed. And, you know, this is how often we go hiking. We don't. But we went hiking and we took, you know, I got him these shoes. I gave him these shoes. I said, wear these. They're great hiking. They were boots. And within about an hour or so, he actually walked straight out of the soles. The glue had disintegrated.
And he wanted to be grounded.
I had 12 kilometers in my socks that were gone by the end of it to walk back. But look, this is not very high off the ground, but you can see the size of this trident structure and the branches going into it. So I don't know if
that was up in Portland in just past Katoomba, you know, about an hour and a half past Katoomba. So when we saw, we looked at that and we went, I don't know I think that's maybe something's going on there. It could be
something. And this was another one where we found these branches suspended from incredible height that didn't look like they had actually fallen from any adjoining tree and had like hooks on them. But, you know, the point of fact is that it is a beautiful thing to step out into nature and to be aware of your surroundings and to learn to track.
But to look at some new surroundings.
Yeah, and then all of a sudden to have your mind wonder about this environment and something else with heightened consciousness living amongst us. And I think that is an absolutely profound moment. And, you know, Jane Goodall, one of the leading primatologists in the world, said if we do not respect the history of indigenous cultures and their stories which accommodate this species all across the world, then we are doing an injustice to everything around us. You decided to start eating then during the podcast, did you? Yeah. So where are we at now? I mean, we've looked at that thermal image going out there into Australian media, and we're shocked at how programs like Sunrise still, in a sense, have that skeptical nature. But Dean seems to have the strength to be able to go on those shows and deal with it the way he does. And I love that statement that he says, Buck and Gary, and that statement is basically, I'm not here to make you believe this whatsoever. In a sense, I don't really care what you think, but I'm just showing you the evidence, and it is evidence.
Yeah, it's more evidence. It's not singular evidence. It's just a mounting body of evidence that grows into a big thing. If I can tell you for a fact, if we had the Holy Grail Insta-shot of the Yowie, people would be falling over themselves to get interviews and treat Dean with a lot more respect because suddenly they could relate to a glossy 10 by 8 picture What they can't relate to is that sometimes it seems tenuous, but it's out of place and it is evidence and it didn't happen by accident. And then, like the thermal imaging I've got, it won't convince the person down the pub, but it certainly raises eyebrows for people that are interested in this topic. And there are other people out there who are sitting on their own accounts and would look at that footage and go, yes, that silhouette matched what I saw, this big hulking throwback from another time.
I mean, how many reports have you guys correlated? And you've correlated virtually reports dating back to the birth of the colony here.
Well, Dean's got thousands, over 3,000 reports. There's coming up to 200 YouTube AYR witness reports, which are interviews done by Dean, Sarah Paul, and a bunch of other people.
You've also got to remember that those reports are not all of them. I mean, like, there's also a lot of reports that come through the Facebook page where it's, hey, I just want to let you know I saw something, heard something, found something.
Yeah.
Even though they are technically a report, but they're not logged like the proper reports that people submit. So even though, as Buck said, there's 3,000, there's actually probably 10,000.
Yeah, and I mean,
then there's all the ones that don't get reported.
And there's so many people that are never going to report this because there is so much ridicule still wrapped around it, and which is absolutely ridiculous. But, you know, statistically, let's look at this from the criminal justice system. If one of those reports
we only need one.
Is real, and by the number, by the totality, you've got a distinct phenomena. So wake up, humanity, you know? And
you know what? There's a lot of people that don't want to know. They don't want it to be real because it will just shatter their whole Earth view, you know, everything that they know.
That is true. But if you look at the indigenous people of this land, they've been living with them for millennia, and they know they're there and they're not shattered. They're still proud and strong. They just know they're there and they accept them, just like Gary knows that there are other things in this world and he accepts it. So the majority of armchair critics, if I come back to that thing, would hate to think that they're not the apex predator. Out in Australia. In America, you've got bears and a lot of things. Actually, there's a ton of things that can kill you in Australia.
Absolutely.
But you know, you're okay if you take some insect repellent and a good taut bandage.
That pragmatism is beautiful. Just insect repellent and a bandage, you're okay. Watch out for the black snakes, though, but you should be fine. But you know what? The amazing thing, too, I think about your research is the ability for all of you involved in this team to have a very broad notion of this phenomenon. I mean, I see in the States and even in some of the podcasts on the Untold Radio Network that it's like it's got to be flesh and blood and that's what I'm sticking to. Or it's got to be extremely esoteric and that's what I'm sticking to. Well, look, I'm afraid the jury's not in on that yet. And what we need to do is, like the woke world is telling us, is to be open to every possibility. Because you may surprise yourself one day at how complex this phenomenon or series of phenomena are. But as you were saying before, Gary, as you were saying before, Buck, that once you're aware of this, that there seems to be an interconnectedness with a whole lot of other anomalous activity.
High strangeness.
Yeah.
That's the phrase.
Yeah, and there's nothing more beautiful than a bit of high strangeness brought sometimes to a very dull planet. And, you know, as far as I'm concerned, you know, one thing I do hear in the reports, and we both have a mental health background. We worked with disabled people, we've worked with mentally ill people, we've worked in hospices. And one thing I do hear, and which really upsets me and scares me in many ways, is when you're listening to those reports, you can hear the sounds of post-traumatic stress disorder in the eyewitnesses. And that really is something that doesn't occur from an hallucination. It doesn't occur from a nightmare. You have to be taken out of your paradigm and shoved into something like a lot of people that are veterans of war come back showing signs of post-traumatic stress disorder. And I think this is the problem. If you're going to wander into those wilderness areas, and you guys with yowiehunters.com have actually raised the awareness for people to exercise caution when going into certain areas, you're going to get the shock of your life if you're not prepared for this. I mean, we hear, Sasquatch Chronicles, we hear hunters who basically will never go back out there. But what a great loss that is to your life, to remove yourself from the harmony of those wilderness areas.
Well,
to give you a bit of perspective on getting the word out there and the awareness and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Through 18 months ago, we got contacted through the Facebook page from a father who said his daughter, who they're on the Sunshine Coast, his daughter was out on a school excursion. So with this particular excursion, they took their push bikes and they went on their push bikes through one of the national parks.
Right.
That was just that particular excursion. The father contacted us because his daughter came home and said that she saw something. And he basically said, are we able to speak to her to calm her mind, calm her soul,
right?
And for the fact, and to let her know that she's not alone.
Yeah.
So straight away, I gave my phone number. I said, look, if you want to call me, call me. If not, that's perfectly fine. 12 seconds later, I got a phone call, and it was the father. So we had a quick chat, and then he put me on to his 9-year-old daughter.
Oh God!
Now this sighting was 3 hours old.
Oh,
so they're on the excursion. His daughter she rode ahead of the class down the track. So she's maybe 100 meters down the track, and she stopped to wait for her classmates to catch up. To her right, she hears a cracker of the movement of branches. She looks, and she sees this giant monster standing beside a tree with its right hand pulling the branch down, and she saw everything: the head, the chest, the left shoulder, left arm, both legs, the body. And she said, and they looked for each other for a few seconds. It let go of the branch, and it moved off.
Wow.
And it was three, but yeah, again, so he contacted us just so we can have a chat to his daughter to let her know that she's not alone. She's not seeing things. And I spoke to his daughter. She told me that story from her own mouth, from her own mind, from her own senses. And I spent another half an hour on the phone with her, telling her about what I've seen, telling her about my daughter when she was 3, that she's seen 2 of them, telling her about all these wonderful stories. Obviously didn't say anything negative about it, but I told her wonderful stories about gifts, and when they give flowers, they give crystals. They're nothing to feel just to comfort her and put her mind at ease. And the main thing is that she's not alone, and she's not.
And it's not a monster.
That's right, exactly right.
Yes.
In the eyes of AYR, I think as a collective, we sort of see him as a people more than an animal, and that basically comes back to experiences of our own, but also experiences of people that come to us.
Remember, this is in terms of a gifting. This is when the finder cemented his name on one of our many days out in Springbrook National Park. I lost my radio, and Gary, being Gary, went to find my radio, and it could have been anywhere. It was brand new. It had only been out of the box that day, and I was glum. I went, oh my gosh, it was a slog getting in. It was a harder slog getting out. Could be anywhere. Gary went down into the valley, and he found it clipped to a vine about chest height. I don't wear my radio there. I wear it down on my buckle.
That's remarkable.
It is remarkable. We had heard some mumbling and some walking, and we felt there was something around there. But Gary went and found my radio, and it was clipped to a vine for us to find, for Gary to find, and Gary used his intuition again. But there it was, and it's really interesting mystery.
Also to mention, when we come back together as a group, most of us turn our radios off because we're to save battery, but we're back together. If we go off, we'll turn our radios back on. Because we all come back together and we're hiking out together. Buck turned his radio off, so when I found his radio clipped to the line, it was turned on.
Wow.
And again, as Buck said, we'd have movement that day. This particular creek is below the thermal location. It's a creek below the ridge of the thermal location. We found scat there, which came back as unknown species.
Right.
We've had many other findings in there. As Buck said, we stopped for a quick break, and we heard this strange mumbling, basically like an old man mumbling to himself. Buck went up the creek. He heard something move off, and as Buck said, something was watching us make our way up this creek, and then noticed that Buck dropped his radio and helped us out. So
wow.
I went back.
Can I just ask you about? Can I ask you about the scat? Sorry.
Yeah. It's poo.
How? Yeah. How big? Like seriously, how big was that pile from a 9.5, or
we're not too sure about that one because
was it from that?
Yeah. I don't think so. Going with the size of it, I'd say it would have been a juvenile.
It was substantial for us to notice it, for Gary to find it, and it stuck to high heaven, but it was in the middle of a rock, in the middle of a stream.
Oh, that's the one that Sarah was telling us about. Yeah.
And it had been raining heavily up until 3 a.m. that night, so it was fresh and it was certainly rank. Right. And we carried it out, and Gary kept it in his freezer for quite some time, but the results were interesting and also disappointing because it was unknown, and they said, "Oh, it's too difficult. There was not enough."
How can it be difficult
matter
in a digital age? I mean, where everything is on databases and they can collate through it. That just seems infuriating.
It's like, well, if it's unknown, then it's a species we haven't.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah,
it's either unknown or it's denial.
But again, good hard money was spent on that, and a lot of
that's exactly right. Like we've even found scat piles that are a lot bigger than what we found that day. The last one we found was on top of a dirt mound. And it had the contents of a whole bird inside it, except the feet, like the beak, the bones, feathers, like it was a big chicken drumstick.
Wow.
If these universities want more quantity for their testing, this one would have been perfect. But at the end of the day, unlike the US, it's not cheap to get these things tested in Australia.
No, it's not. And the other thing too is that we're not DNA experts, and we don't know the parameters that they're going through to do it, and they're not necessarily.
It's really difficult. It's really difficult then for you to evaluate their evaluation. And
we also don't want to lead the witness. We don't want to say we think this is from an unknown hominid.
Of course, of course.
We want
them to tell you. Yeah.
What do you
would like them to, but then again, we're used to not being caught in our own echo chamber. Like, we don't want to just rattle the cage and go, this is it. Well, it just didn't work out. But it was, you chalk it up to the finder of finding scat and Scat Creek. So
on saying that, I mean, when Dean did get the results, like from the worm and bacteria count, as people may know, going by those levels, they can tell what animal that scat come from. So at certain levels, possum, fox, wallaby, The lowest levels are human/primate, and these levels came back at human/primate. But if it's human, they can cross-reference their findings and say, well, it lines up. You've just picked up another hiker's droppings. But they couldn't say that. They couldn't say it was human DNA. It was unknown. So as Buck said, it's unfortunate that they couldn't give us an answer, but in the end of the day, as you said, that is an answer.
If it's an unknown, then it hasn't been
It's an unknown
classified yet.
species.
Something
That's
that
right.
hasn't been classified.
There
That's,
you go.
you know, I don't know. Getting back to that little girl quickly, I really feel for that child. Did she tell the teachers what she saw? Or did
I'm
she
not too
keep it to
sure.
herself? Okay. All right.
I've-
Because you know what? When my grandchildren have gone camping, like with school, we tell them, don't be in the front, don't be in the back, be in the middle. Always be in the middle of the line. Never never lead. And never, because we've told them that there's things out there they need to be aware and stay in the middle.
But the one thing too is to do what you're saying, Gary and Buck, is to remove that fear from your children. And what I think you're doing, and I feel it as a therapist, is when I listen to the testimonies on yowiehunters.com, I can hear the catharsis. I can hear the therapy in just the ability to retell that story and retell it in a public arena. You guys are creating a mammoth community service there that actually should be funded. I mean, you're not just artistic out there, and you should have film crews all over you. You should have philanthropic people that can remain anonymous, assisting you with the science to evaluate what's occurring. And if they're not there, because the truth is, and I will scream it now till I have a freaking heart attack here, the time will prove you all true.
Everyone that's seen one.
If people don't want to believe,
that's okay.
It's not a question of belief. You guys are doing scientific research.
For sure. But what I'm getting at is that if people you meet down the pub, the shop, at work, whatever, don't believe, these days I tend to look at it as that's where they are.
Yeah, of course.
At the moment on their particular path.
And I respect that right in them.
Like down the track, their path will hopefully lead them to that path of what's actually out there.
Yeah, but you're also not going to have a debate with them either.
Oh, for sure. Well, that's what these days, these days, if it comes up, if it comes up these days and someone goes, "Oh, you look for yowies, do you?" Like in a condescending sort of tone. The first thing I say these days is, I will not discuss their existence. And they sort of look at you a bit strange and they say something, I won't discuss their existence. Well, what do you mean? I'm happy to discuss our research, our findings, who these beings are, what these beings do, where these beings are, but I will not discuss their existence because we are far past that. And I find when I say that, sorry, I can hear my dogs chasing something else.
That's all right. It's just your dogs. Our cat's been going continuously throughout this.
So I find once I say to people that I will not discuss their existence, you can almost see the cogs change gear inside their head.
Right.
And then the conversation goes in a more positive direction as opposed to a condescending direction.
It's a very good tactic, Gary. I might try it.
From you, my friend.
We're past it.
I'm very curious about your relationship with researchers in other countries. And also the other thing I'd like to ask you about is, are there other research groups into this parallel hominid within Australia? You're the ones with the most predominant, media appearances out there and the most, extraordinary sites. So can you firstly maybe say anything about other researchers that work in unity with you, and how do you see the difference between what you're doing here and what occurs maybe in the States?
Well, we have great people like Paul Cropper, Tony Healy, working on the release of another book. They've been researching it. Obviously, Sarah Bignall. There's plenty of other interest groups that do their own research, and then there are also just people that are piggybacking, deciding that this is what they'd like to do to get the likes. And in the end, they end up obfuscating what we're doing. And watering down the research that we do, and it becomes a race to the bottom. If everybody can go out and start a Facebook chain, a page, and pretty much just quote AYR or other known sources, or what they're doing other than repeating. But it's great to see that there are other people out there putting the hard yards in, because we're only a small group. People think that we're a massive organisation. It's a small group, and it's led by Dean, who's done this for over 25, 30 years. So there's other people. Gary's way more into other groups than I am. I'm just barely staying afloat during work and trying to squirrel away a day or two up in the bush.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I mean, how do your partners, your family, how do they perceive what you do with this research? How does that work?
Luckily, pretty well.
Great.
Well. I mean,
I would say the same.
Which I think is a rare thing, because we've done a lot of ufological research. I had an experience when I was much younger at school, similar to Westall, but the objects didn't land in the school, and that kicked me off. But, one thing I do find as a therapist, and I'm very fortunate to have a great marriage over 32 years with a partner that's just as interested and has had experiences as well. But most people don't have that. They're even isolated in their intimate personal lives. So I'm always curious about where that sits in terms of family and relationships. And, we're well aware, Gary, that you've got it going on in so many ways. It's astounding.
Yeah, no, luckily my wife's pretty understanding, and also knowing as well. Like, she's had experiences herself with ghostly apparition, that kind of thing. But I think I sort of forced her into this situation in a way, to be honest with you. But again, luckily she's understanding and she goes with it. And I think after my experiences, our daughter's experiences, and then plus, with the ET side of it, I'd say I tell my wife about it, and she'll no, I don't want to hear about it. Don't tell me, don't know, because obviously the fear factor.
Yeah.
And I had a couple of experiences there where an ET race were visiting the house here and there, and I'd seen them in the house twice.
Right.
And a couple of months after the last one, my wife goes, "Oh, I've seen one too." And everyone sort of stopped and looked at her, because she keeps quiet about this. And she finally told me what the go was, and she said she was laying in bed she was asleep, sorry. And it's about 3-4 o'clock in the morning, and she said she suddenly just woke up, looked to my side of the bed, and she could see this silhouette figure standing over top of me. And she said she composed herself for a sec to, I guess, wake herself up a little, to make sure she's actually seeing what she's seeing. And she actually did see this ET being standing over top of me. For me personally, it's, I guess, almost like normal life. It doesn't worry me at all. But I noticed that was a bit of a turning point with my wife. She became a bit more interested in everything. Like, she's already on board with it all. But after that particular night, she was a little bit less dismissive. But otherwise, she's good. Like, we'll go have adventures. When I say adventures, it's us crawling through the bush and that kind of thing.
That's an adventure.
And like, there's even one. There's
dream dates.
This one. Yeah, this one particular adventure where myself, Dean, and another guy from Yowie Chronicles, we did this trek through Springbrook, and we met up at 7 to head off at 7:30 through the bush, and we figured we'd be out by 1 o'clock. Anyway, as things happened, didn't go to plan. I'm dropping. So we left the cars at the bottom. Dean's car's up the top of Springbrook. So I'm dropping Dean back to his car at 6:30 at night. So it was obviously far surpassed the average time we were expecting to be out there. And the funny thing is that I had missed calls and messages from Dean's wife, from Tony from Yowie Chronicles. I had missed calls and messages from his wife. I had nothing from my wife. Nothing. I get home. I'm like, what's going on? Like, is there something wrong? Like, how come you didn't try to call her or nothing like that? And she's like, I knew you'd be right. It's all good. Meanwhile, we're out in the middle of the bush, crossing dams in our undies so we get our clothes wet, making rafts out of dead wood, and lost my wedding ring and scorpions. It's this big, crazy day, and she's like, he'll be right. He's all
She's
good.
got faith in you, Gary. She's got faith in
Yeah.
you. She truly understands you.
Yeah.
Well, look,
but yeah, I think. Yeah, sorry. You're right.
No, go on, please.
I was just going to say, for the most part, I think the team are pretty lucky with their partners. I haven't heard one bit of negativity, in the sense of, what do you think? Like, you're wasting your time doing this kind of thing. I haven't heard any kind of negativity like that from any of the team members, even just in general conversation. So I think all of our energies have pulled us together at the right moment, the right time, connected us, with the right people. And for 2023, we're just going to push harder and push further.
Well, look, we cannot thank both of you enough for your time. It's been a very extended interview, and I do apologize for our fragile technical capabilities.
What?
We will get better. Can we just have a look at that thermal image one more time?
One more time.
Because I think the public needs to see this.
Because we can.
And you need to go up on YouTube to yowiehunters.com. And if you haven't been there before, be prepared for one of the most astounding uplifts you'll have in your consciousness.
Or a world-shattering view.
Yes, but I cannot thank these gentlemen for their kind-heartedness, their generosity of spirit, and also to say that we are all profoundly affected by your astounding research. And I know that time will prove you true. I hope you can give our love and our expression of just how profound, one more time, your integrity is in your research. I think it's remarkable. I think it's second to none. And we're very proud to have had the time to spend with you.
We're lucky we've got these guys here.
Really lucky
we've
got you here. So let's just drop that down. And any, final statement here as we end this podcast for the Untold Radio Network, because there's a lot of researchers worldwide that hopefully will get a peek at this.
Yeah, for sure. Go out there. The only way you're going to get results is to go out there and be in their areas. Remember that they don't work off our timetable. They've got their own timetable. Go out there, be proactive, be positive. Try lots of different avenues for your research. Don't get stuck in the flesh and blood or the this and the that. Try different aspects, different avenues, different perspectives. Try all that kind of thing. Again, yowiehunters.com. Thank you guys for having us on. Thank you, Buck, for being here.
Thank you, Gary.
And,
now, Buck, a final comment from you. And I love, actually, you must have some filmic or technical background. You look astounding the way you presented yourself tonight there.
Thank you. Yeah, I work in film, television, and theatre, mainly theatre.
Wow. I would love to know more about you. Do you know, I don't think anyone remembers my celebrity.
Here we go.
I was actually brought in as the David Stratton when David and Margaret went to the ABC. I was on SBS as the host of the movie show for a couple of
minutes.
Yeah, and no one remembers it. But I give you guys a 6-star rating out of 5.
Wow.
Yeah. Thanks.
There you go.
Well, if I was going to sign off with anything, I'll just sign off with the heat is on.
Yeah.
That's the heat is on.
Righto, Top Gun.
Yowiehunters.com. You guys have got a website up under Australian Yowie Research as well. And there must be some way that someone listening to this podcast will realize the integrity of these extraordinary researchers, the profound work they're doing, and donate their house to them. So, or something like that. So wake up, humanity.
Good stuff.
These incredible individuals are on top of their game, and please keep in touch with us. And if there's anything we can do to assist, we will be there.
Absolutely.
Oh, good. Remember, people, the eyes are useless if the mind is blind.
Whoa. There you
Love
go.
that. We've got a poet in our midst.
Yeah, we do.
Yeah. Well,
I'm
our
loving it.
heart is with you all. Give our love to Dean. Give our love to Sarah. And keep doing
Love you,
what
Buck.
you're doing. We're very proud
Love
of
you,
you.
big guy.
Thank you so much.
And
All
good night.
All right.
Thanks for
well, we'll
having
be
us.
back next week with another podcast.
Yeah. Do you
of-
think it's ever going to live up to this one?
No.
No.
No,
Okay.
not.
All right. Thank
All
you,
right.
Gary Lynn, and thank you, Buckingham. And you've been on Untold Radio. This is Down South Anomalies. My name's Jay Katz, and Asper Serum will be back next week.
We will. Good night.